Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, and I've got Bengals on the Brain just like you guys. That's why you're watching the show in the summer, in the heat. I assume you guys are dealing with it too. We're all across the country, but you know, it's hot all over the place. If it's hot in Buffalo, New York, where I live, well, outside of Buffalo, I assume it's hot everywhere else. But as you're going about your summer activities, I think about, the positives, the negatives. I think about the team. I think about the Bengals, of course. That's the idea of the show, is that you, like me, spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about the Cincinnati Bengals, what they should do, what they can do, what they won't do, what they didn't do, what they did do. And you replay it in your mind. And then you fantasize about the things they could and should do. And then you get grumpy at the things they won't do. And it all leads to probably no good emotions as you're trying to get through your summer and your daily life as we're getting closer and closer to training camp. And so for today's episode and next episode, we're going to go through those thoughts and go over 20 topics that will probably decide if we're happy or not come January, February 2026. And the first episode of the two-part series is the 10 things that will lead to the disappointment of the Cincinnati Bengals this season. 10 things that will go wrong, 10 things that could go wrong, 10 things that will leave us in January and go, this franchise, man, this team, the Bengals, whatever you can come up with. It's how we felt most of the time, I feel like. If you're around my age, I think if you're any age, if you're any age Bengal fan, most of the time you sit back and you go, dang, even in the best years, right? Even in 2021, do you not wake up in the middle of the night haunted by the final play like I am? I hope you are. Well, I don't hope you are because it sucks. But at the same time, that's why you're here. That's why you're watching, because you have Bengals on the Brain as well. So the 10th, we're going to count down. Starting at 10. Why the Bengals will disappoint this year? Maybe special teams hasn't gotten better. Darren Simmons going on year 39, probably, something like that. He's been here forever as the special teams coach and assistant head coach. It's a complete turnover now from the days of Kevin Huber and even Evan McPherson, but Kevin Huber and Clark Harris at long snapper. Now Ryan Rico looks like maybe he'll take another step in year 2. That'd be awesome. Even if he doesn't, he was a pretty good punter last year. Nice upgrade from, what in between Huber and Ryan Rico. Chrisman, he didn't have the same type of leg, couldn't get the hang time. Rico comes in right away. Brad Robbins didn't have the leg. That's what I was thinking of. Brad Robbins didn't have the leg either. And Rico right away, booming punts. Great. But then the holding became an issue. The long snapping from Cal Adamitis, who was the number one long snapper prospect when he came out and eventually replaced Clark Harris. The Bengals signed William Wagner, the number one long snapper, during this undrafted free agent period. So maybe one of those two will be good. Maybe, or maybe they won't be. Maybe Cal will still just be below average and beat out William Wagner because he's not ready and Wagner is holding the practice squad spot. And then you get to Evan McPherson. He went 3 for 7 last year, 50 plus. That's what makes McPherson good. That's why Money Mac is Money Mac. 2 reasons. Number one, clutch kicking, which last year was a big issue. The Bengals make the playoffs if McPherson was Money Mac. Even with all their warts, even with a terrible defense. If special teams was good last year, and I'm thinking of the kicking game, especially in the clutch moments, the Bengals make the playoffs. And it's not just kicks. It was extra points too, which are kicks. But you know what I'm saying. Those extra points, that Chiefs game week 2, that had an impact. The Bengals should have beaten the Ravens. What was that, week 5? Whole different ballgame if they win that one for the season. Bad snap, bad hold, bad kick. The process. The execution. What is that called? It's not the process. There's a name for it. Anyways, this is stuff that goes through my mind as I'm living my life, and it haunts me. It comes up. What if McPherson's only going to be 53% over the last 2 years from beyond 50? Money Mac's supposed to be clutch with a strong leg. He can hit those 50-yard plus. We can't go 50% over the last 2 years. That's not special. That's going to put your bad defense in an even worse situation. Now the other team's starting from what? At least the 40, if not the 45, midfield basically. They're in shot play territory, and your bad defense is caught in a position. So they got to get Money Mac back, and maybe it was just the calf last year. Maybe, hopefully. It was just that. But I felt like it was long snapping and holding as well. And all of it has to be in sync, together, and effective if the Bengals don't want to disappoint us. It's not how I want to say it. The Bengals want to get back to where we need them to be. Special teams has to rebound. Number 9, things I think about when I'm out. Things I worry about with this team. I think about last year's distractions with Ja'Marr Chase not getting that done in time and how that affected them week 1 and even week 2. I mean, remember Ja'Marr had that personal foul penalty? He definitely had a 15-yard penalty after he got leg dropped, so hip dropped, and he wasn't happy with that, obviously. But just how disjointed the offense looked early. And then you're here now. We're just a couple weeks from camp. Camp's starting around the league. We'll get to that in a second. But Trey Hendrickson still is holding out, wants a contract done. Of course he does. Why haven't you gotten a deal done with him yet? But how much of a distraction is that going to be? Burrow's already said it's a distraction to not have him here. It's a distraction to not have your best defensive player on the field. And that's one part, right? On the field, you don't have him. We want those reps going against Orlando Brown Jr. And maybe in Al Golden's defense, they flip Trey over more and give him some reps against Amarius Mims. That'd be cool. I'd love to see those reps. But they're going to have to answer questions about it all summer unless the deal gets done. And then Shamar Stewart, the same exact thing. The only first-round pick not signed. And they're going to have to answer questions about that. And the Bengals are going to have to either budge or Shamar's camp's going to have to budge. Oh, and the reps aren't. He's not getting the reps still for a guy who needs the reps and would be going against primarily Amarius Mims. Those would be great reps. I'd love to watch Amarius Mims versus Shamar Stewart. With those two going power with length, with how intense Shamar Stewart plays, and I want to see Mims get that same intensity, that'd be great. Those are great matchups. But again, another distraction at probably your 2 starting defensive ends. And then, underrated storyline, another distraction will be for every team, as we already see the Chargers are reporting to camp and Trey Harris, their 2nd-round pick. Ole Miss, wide receiver, he's not there. Why? Because he's not signed. 2nd-round picks aren't signed still. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. And it's because the first few guys in the 2nd round got guaranteed contracts the way first-rounders always do, right now, since the 2011 CBA, collective bargaining agreement. First-rounders get guaranteed contracts, 2nd-rounders do not. Everyone else doesn't. Now it's starting to infiltrate 2nd-round picks. So you've got the vast majority of 2nd-rounders who have not signed. And you think the Bengals are going to budge on that? No way. So Demetrius Knight is not going to be out there. Is it going to be Oren Burks? Is it going to be Barrett Carter? That is a distraction. Your first 2 picks aren't going to be there. It's a problem. I think about that. This is one, and I got it at 9. I mean, all of these issues are issues that bug me, but I've got it at 9, and it may be the most pressing issue or the most fixable issue on this list. Like, you could handle it, and it could be done right now.
And eighth thing I think about is they've relied so much on guys who have been hurt recently. And I don't think they have the depth to overcome it. Whether it's Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle last year, who was durable throughout his entire career, all of a sudden misses time. And you remember Devin Cochran needing to play, right? Cody Ford was terrible at tackle. Are they good enough now at swing tackle? If Cody Ford wins the right guard job, even if he doesn't, are you okay with Cody Ford at left tackle? I'm not. And the difference between what you get from Orlando Brown Jr. to even Jalen Rivers, we don't know, right? Rookie. But Cody Ford, Devin Cochran, it's not ideal. T. Higgins. The Bengals have a 39-30-1 record when T. Higgins plays in his career. Zach Taylor doesn't even have an above 500 record as a whole. I think he's 6 games under 500. But with T. Higgins playing, they're 9 games over 500. They need T to play, but he plays typically about 12 games a year. And then you got guys that are coming back from injury that maybe should, have a role with the team, whether it's like a Zach Moss or a Charlie Jones. If you don't have either of those guys, it doesn't kill you, but it hurts your depth. BJ Hill's in a walking boot already. Hopefully he'll be fine for camp, but if he's not, I have major concerns about the defensive line room. If not, Logan Wilson returning from injury, Dax Hill, DJ Turner. We need both those guys to be at their best, and yet they're coming off injury. Eric All, you tell me they're not going to miss Eric All this year? He was huge for them for that stretch of games where he really started playing. He was big, and they don't have another guy on that roster that can do that. Yeah, Cam Grandy can do some of it, but are they a better team with Cam Grandy on the field or just another receiver? Getting Burton out there, getting Andre Osivach out there, right? So that's a huge loss. And and this isn't even without even mentioning Burrow, right? Burrow's had his injuries. But if T misses time, if Zach Moss, Orlando Brown Jr., Logan Wilson, Dax Hill, DJ Turner, BJ Hill, Miles Murphy, McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins all had injuries last year. And yeah, they got hit last year, and it's hard to know who's going to rebound, and injuries are hard to predict. But usually guys that miss the entire year, someone like Dax Hill is where I started thinking about this and how I'm going to end this segment. He was their number one corner last year in a lot of ways, the way he looked, the way he performed. Coming off a knee injury, typically you're supposed to give them a grace year. And if he's not that guy, how good is the defense? If he's not good, or if you have to start Josh Newton instead, how good is the defense? So to me, it's a big issue that I don't think we talk about enough. Is I think they have quite a few guys that are coming off injury or consistently get injured, like a T. Higgins, and you have to wonder if they can overcome those things because they don't go out and sign quality depth, and you're just replacing on more, or you're relying on more unknowns to replace those guys. You know what else I think about? Pops in my head pretty often because the Bengals seasons have failed continuously because of their offensive line play, right? Like, think of the final play in the Super Bowl. Think of the final play in the AFC Championship game the following year in 2022. You could even say the broken wrist or the injured wrist, offensive line play. The line has continued to fail them in numerous ways, but largely not just talent evaluation, not just talent, not just development, coaching. And the Bengals made a big change, obviously. They went from Frank Pollock and brought in Scott Peters, who was a Bill Callahan disciple, worked under him, known for his technique, there to develop guys and get their hand usage right. But it's like cutting edge stuff, jujitsu woven into his teachings, right? It's kind of new. We don't know if it'll work. In fact, he had one job last year, and his first time being a head offensive line coach for the New England Patriots last year. The two linemen they drafted were terrible, and reaches. Like, we do the draft, or we focus on that in the offseason and spring. I hated the offensive lineman they picked last year for him. And then the offensive line for the Patriots was a wreck the entire season. And it's not just Peters. It's not just the guys they drafted. They had some injuries as well. They don't have an Amarius Mims. They don't have an Orlando Brown Jr. I get that. They don't even have a Ted Karras. But they weren't good. And he couldn't hold them together. And he couldn't get them to think of the opposite. That amount of talent, poor drafting, poor talent acquisition for the Patriots, and Scott Peters got them to keep their head above water. They weren't drowning. If that was the story, and if that was the case, I would be excited. I'd be like, ooh, yeah, he did a great job. He got those guys to play above their ability. But he didn't last year. And maybe he learned on the job. I'm sure he did, and was ready to tackle this Bengals team, who has better talent on the offensive line marginally. They do have Mims, and they do have Brown, and they do have Karras, and we'll have to figure out, Dylan Fairchild, and figure out the right guard spot. You could have worse talent, no doubt about it. But to think that we don't have some concern that Scott Peters just isn't the guy, I think would be foolish. We're going from Frank Pollock, who had a system that worked, didn't fit the Bengals. We never got to see the wide zone stuff, right? Once Burrow was here, that was gone. By week 4, 2022, it was ripped out of the playbook. Now you don't have a run game coordinator. It's just Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher. They're just going to run that show. Scott Peters didn't get that. That's part of coordinating and being a head offensive line coach, not just an assistant offensive line coach, not just a guy that's there to help with technique, but the outlook of the offense and building that running game. It's a tall task for him.
You know what else I think about? The Bengals just aren't good enough running the ball. They haven't been pretty much under the whole Zach Taylor era. The modern Bengals, I think of like 2021 to 2024. I don't include 2020 because the stats get weird because Burrow only played 10 games, right? And they were finding their way. It was a much different team from 21 to 24, especially with the expectations. But they've never been a good running team under Zach Taylor. And that was supposed to be a big thing when he came over from the Rams, right? At the time, the Rams were a very good wide zone running team that put up a bunch of points because of their play action passing. With Burrow at the helm, they just don't run it enough. Number one, last year, number one most often running team, highest percentage of runs, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, that includes quarterback carries. So we're seeing quarterbacks-led teams that can run, quarterbacks who can run. They end up towards the top. But the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and they're running at 56% of the time. The Bengals were 31st last year. They got a long way to go still in being a more balanced offense. And I don't blame them because, on one hand, since 2021, they're 19th in rush EPA. They're 25th in success rate. That's not good. Like, their offense is a top 6, I think, in total EPA since 2021. and yet their run game is way down. That means if you just look at their passing attack, they're way up there since 2021. Why don't they run the ball more? Well, why would you when the offense is so unbalanced? The passing efficiency, how good the passing attack is up here. And I like Chase Brown, but their running game is down here. And it has been. I like Joe Mixon, and their running game was down here. They're just not efficient enough. They don't build off it enough. They don't rely on it enough. And you may say, well, why would you when your passing game is so good? I have said that. Because sometimes you need to run the ball. Sometimes it's not Joe Burrow's day. You run into the Browns in a monsoon, you know what? That might be a good game to run the ball. You get into the Super Bowl and you're running it pretty well, might be a good day to run the ball and continue to run the ball. There have been games where it's written for you. Hey, the passing game's not going to be everything you need it to be today. The run game's there. And it doesn't feel like the Bengals and Zach Taylor will ever commit to it. Maybe I should say the Bengals, Zach Taylor, and Joe Burrow will ever commit to it and run the ball the way they should in those games. Even if the frequency didn't increase all that much, but their efficiency did, that would go a long way. But one of the reasons I think this team is going to be held back from going the distance, going all the way, is they just won't run the ball, and they won't run it well. And a big one is the head coach, the coaching staff in general. But maybe Zach Taylor is just average. And that's fine. That's, you can do a lot worse than Zach Taylor. But if we're talking about this team and Joe Burrow in this era, this Bengals era of Burrow and Chase and Higgins and the 2021 team, what's left of it, and even thinking of 2021, the offense failed in the second half of that Super Bowl. That falls on Zach Taylor. The slow starts fall on Zach Taylor. A lot of the issues with the team fall on Zach Taylor because he's the head coach. And we know the organization, right? We know they're not doing everything to secure depth. They haven't drafted well. They fought with every single one of their star players over their contracts. That doesn't help. We know these things. But at the end of the day, you have to wonder, can they get over the hump with Zach Taylor? Or will it take a special quarterback and a special head coach? And I know that's hard to find. But your Pat Mahomes has to go with an Andy Reid. Would Pat Mahomes go to the Raiders and would he be what he is right now? Unlikely. So as great as Joe Burrow is Zach Taylor the guy to get this franchise where they need to be? Because we can like Zach Taylor, and I do. But I also am understanding of what this franchise is, and they're going to make you win with one hand tied behind your back. Can Zach Taylor do that? I'm not sure. It's a tough ask, though, because I'm not sure a lot of these coaches could. I'm not sure a lot of these players could do it. But it is the task. This is the Bengals. They're not going to give you everything you need to be successful, to get over that hump. So maybe Taylor being the 14th best coach, wherever you want to rank him, that's fine. Being the 14th best coach in the league is just not good enough to get us where we need to be. We get to a late season run and the offense has a failure at the end of the game. You can look at last year. I know the slow start probably killed them, right? The defense probably killed them. The special teams probably killed them. But they also had opportunities to win a bunch of games at the end on offense and failed to do it. And some of that goes on Burrow and the offensive line and the receivers and the running game and who's the leader of the offense and the team. It's Zach Taylor. And that creeps up in my mind every so often, that maybe he's just average.
Watch, I'm going to keep my eyes locked right on it. No, you did hit it. And you hit it well. I'm just telling you to keep your head down even after you swing. Good. Give me 10 of those. I'm going to record something real fast. One of the major issues that I think about, and that's going to continue to come up, is they just didn't add enough talent on the defensive side, especially. They're banking on the young guys, right? The Miles Murphys, the Dax Hills, the DJ Turners, the Jordan Battles. Even Geno Stone is young. The Demetrius Knights, Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, Joseph Osai, Shamar Stewart. Like, they need all of these guys, not all of them, but they need a large amount of them to hit. And other teams will ensure that, hey, if half of these guys don't hit, you need 8 guys to emerge. Not all 8, let's be real, are going to emerge. You go into free agency and you add a pass rusher. You add a linebacker. Warren Burks and TJ Slayton. Slayton's good. He's going to help. Burks is going to help. But that's all you brought in for the defense in free agency. Not a veteran corner. When 2 of your guys are coming off season-ending injuries and Cam Taylor-Britt's been erratic his entire career, going to bring in a safety. There was a ton of them still out there. A ton of veteran safeties still out there right now. You had major concerns. You had Geno Stone take a pay cut. You didn't trust Jordan Battle last year, and now those are your 2 starters. What does your depth look like at safety? If Geno Stone goes down, who are you playing? Tyson Anderson go in? Dejon Anthony go in? We feel good about them now? You didn't get an interior pass rusher just in case McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins don't take another step. Who are you going to play there? So I don't think they have enough realistic talent. Now they have a lot of drafted talent on the defensive side. They need a lot of these guys to hit, and they haven't yet. They're banking on a lot. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of pressure on Al Golden. A good team, a good franchise would have signed some players. And then you wouldn't have had to force picks of Shamar Stewart. I don't know. They probably wouldn't say they forced that one. But Demetrius Knight in round 2 feels like a force. Secure your defense in free agency, and you still have time to do it, which is what probably keeps me up and keeps nagging at me, because there's veteran free agents out there, especially at safety, that could help you right now.
Just got some Italian bread, my favorite bakery. Shout out Deacon Mello's. You know what else I think about, though? As I make sure I get back out of here safely. No one else is in the parking lot. But you know what else? And this is one of the bigger issues on the team, obviously. They did not address the pass rush. This is from top down. We're going to start. As an organization, how did you think the pass rush was okay or good enough last year? Like, are we going to continue to bank on players that either just show glimpses of upside but are inconsistent, like a Joseph Osai, let's say, or just our young draft picks that have to play? Guys like Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson and Miles Murphy. Like, that's the hopes? This is a team that had 36 sacks last year, near the bottom of the league. And as a fan, was it not agonizing at times to watch them unable to rush the passer until Trey put his cape on and made a play, sometimes barreling through multiple blockers to get a sack? There would be times where Trey's off the field and good luck trying to get pressure on the quarterback. And it's not just sacks, right? Pressure is huge. Disruption is production. The Bengals did not have enough. And they haven't had enough, especially for the interior defensive line, in a long time. So if all those things are true, that, hey, we just haven't seen enough from the young guys. Trey has 17 and a half of our 36 sacks. More than half is because of Trey. And this is what you do in the offseason. Number one, you don't address it. You don't bring in any pass rush help. You signed a nose tackle that's good against the run. Good. That should get you 2 more pass rush plays where you can't rush the passer. You're just going to fall into more sacks, and that means you're better? And then number two, you just spend a first-round pick on a defensive end with 4.5 career sacks. A guy that everyone, whether you're the biggest supporter or not, everyone said Shamar Stewart needs to have a pass rush plan, needs to learn, needs to develop, needs to figure out how to rush the passer more consistently. Great, we need that now. So you didn't address it in free agency. You didn't bring anyone in. You didn't address it in the draft. You didn't bring in a pass rusher because there were guys that had more of a checkered pass. But Mike Green was clearly a better pass rusher. Goes in the second round, so. But there are other guys. I thought Donovan Izaraku was a better pass rusher. So you didn't address it in free agency. You didn't address it in the draft. And then you have yet to sign your defensive MVP. The guy who had more than 50% of the team's total sacks and pressures and everything. He hits every category. Hey, kitty, what are you doing? He's going out with the moving man. Guy's loading boxes. He's getting off the truck with the dolly with boxes on it. Either they're moving out or moving in. And the cat is with him on the thing. I want to bring my cat outside. But you don't address it. You don't add, I mean, there's still guys out there right now, veterans that can help upgrade your depth. But that goes, you know, I've had multiple thoughts about that as well. Like, you can bring in a guy to supplant or replace a Cedric Johnson, a Cam Sample, but I kind of want to see what Cedric Johnson is. I kind of want to see Cam Sample in year two, you know, a year removed from his injury is what I want to say there. I want to see Murphy and Osai and Stewart. Oh, but you don't have Stewart or Hendrickson. How is the pass rush going to be better? The only way it's better is if you're banking on what you saw from Osai, those final 5 games, 6 games, whatever it was, is who he's going to be. Well, if that's the case, well, then Stewart and Murphy aren't going to start. Osai is. And if that's the case, that means Murphy didn't take a step. And it probably means that Stewart isn't hitting the ground running, which he isn't already. Or it means Chris Jenkins turned into a pass rusher. He's never really been that. Or McKinley Jackson turned into a super rare 330. You know, it's rare to find a 330-pounder that can also rush the passer. It's like Dexter Lawrence is the only one in the NFL, and that's it. So what are the options? What's the plan to fix the pass rush? I don't think they have one. And in fact, not only do you not have a plan, they're actively hurting it by not having Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson signed. And we're going to get to a situation, if they're making a run and we end up disappointed at the end of the year, it's because we couldn't get to that other team's quarterback when we needed to end a game. And we needed this pass rush to do something. This is Magnus. He's a good boy. And we're going on a walk. And one of the major things, top 3, I think. I haven't ordered these completely yet. Is that the Bengals? Yeah, it's top 3. It is top 3. As I'm going to say, like, basically the title. Come on, bud. They haven't addressed the offensive line. Still not enough. Are you telling me that Lucas Patrick and Cody Ford, that's the competition for right guard? Not good. I like that. How does that make me feel good when I'm looking at last year's guard duo and I'm like, that was probably the worst duo. Like, all the advanced stuff said, that's the worst duo in the league. Well, now you've got a rookie. You get Cordell Bolson to take a pay cut. That tells you everything you need to know about that. And a rookie in Dylan Fairchild at left guard that I have high hopes for. But a lot of analysts said you're going to have to rebuild some of his mechanics, some of his hand usage, things like that. Okay, so what do rookies normally look like that first year on the interior offensive line? Not very good. And then you go to the right side. And how can it be worse than Alex Cappa? Well, I'll tell you how it could be worse. We talked about Scott Peters on a previous worry for this season. There is a chance that Alex Cappa rebounds with the Raiders with a different offensive line coach, right? Because we've seen Alex Cappa play well. We've never seen Lucas Patrick or Cody Ford play at even 2022 Alex Cappa. Not for a full season. Nope, you're not going in the water. Not today. And
you're going to put Ford and Patrick. I hope it's Patrick, because I think we've seen enough of Ford to have our concerns and not really be sure that he's going to be good for 17 weeks. If Patrick gives us what he gave the Saints last year, I think we'll be all right. At least he can pass protect. He might not be better in the run game, which is also a concern we had previously on this list, where Ford might give you more in the run game, but less as a pass protector. Either way, Patrick has had some years, looking at PFF grades, where he's been dreadful. I'm talking getting benched. Ford has never been able to hold a starting job. And yet that's the competition. They should be out there signing a guard right now, a veteran. And I know these guys are still out there, the Brandon Scherfs, the Will Hernandez, the Shaq Masons, all the guys we've talked about. Well, but they're all still out there, so no one else assigned them either. So they're not perfect players. But you're in a situation where you're protecting Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki you've made an investment in. You've made all these investments on the offensive side. And you're okay with mediocre to below average to potentially bad interior offensive line play at guard? That's unacceptable, in my opinion. How often the season ended with a guard getting beaten and you're ready to run that back, risk that again? Risk Joe Burrow getting hit? Yeah, that's one of the offensive line still is one of the big things, especially just the talent here. Less about the coaching on this point, but more about the talent and the investment on the interior offensive line. Start taking guards seriously before we end up with a disappointing season again.
And the number one reason why the 2025 Bengals will disappoint us yet again is Joe Burrow, the health of Joe Burrow, and what they've put in front of him, obviously. But he's just been hit too many times. When I look at it, he's the biggest reason why they're going to have success, right? Of course, he's fantastic. He's MVP level. He may be the best quarterback in terms of passing, like in the league, without a question. I legit think that. But his health is an issue, and his durability has been an issue. He even talked about it in the Netflix series Quarterback. Like, yeah, he's had injuries. I mean, no one's hiding from it. So I think sometimes as fans, we hide from the severity. We hide from the fact that it might be compiling a little bit. Is he injury prone? I don't even know what that is, or if that's a thing. I know he took 69 hits last year based on the stats from Pro Football Reference. The most he's ever taken. Yeah, more than 2021 and 2022. He was in the 40s those years. And that's not including the playoffs. Even with the playoffs, he got to 60. He had 69 hits last year. And part of the reason is he's carrying the team. He's putting the team on his back. He's holding the ball as long as possible. He's scrambling, making things happen, flipping the ball out and getting crushed. They had like a 2-minute segment on it on the Netflix series where he's just getting hit before he throws it. How sustainable is that? And you got to think about it. Like, the most hits he's had was last year. And that was his best season as well. There's such a fine line of like playing at the level he does, holding the ball, creating, making things happen, being a special player, and taking those hits. And any one of those hits can be a throat contusion. Remember, that's the first one we had? The knee, obviously, calf, wrist. He's had ankle and knee sprains. I'm sure he's had a bunch of other things. In Netflix series, he got hit in the elbow, I believe it was, or in might have been tricep. Can't remember. He was working on it the next day. Point being, those bumps and bruises happen. Every player does. But if you were to say, even with a packed roster, if you felt great about the roster, and the previous 9 things really didn't matter because we got Joe Burrow. If you envision this season, why would it be a failure? You'd say, probably Joe Burrow got hurt, huh? And you'd probably be right. Like, last year was such a weird year. That's why I think last year felt so wrong. because Burrow was healthy. And they still didn't make the playoffs. Probably because the other 9 things on this list did matter and all affected this team in different ways, different weeks, different times, different moments, big moments. But if there's a reason why this 2025 team disappoints us, it's because they didn't do enough up front to protect Burrow, and because there's not enough talent around him, and because the running game's not good enough, and because Zach Taylor's not good enough, because the defense isn't good enough, because of all of these things, Joe Burrow is carrying this team on his back, and he's taking too many hits. And one of them would just be what we all fear. Now, I'm knocking on wood while I'm doing that. Fingers are crossed, toes are crossed. I don't want that to happen. Clearly not, right? I don't want to even project that to happen. I don't even want to speak it into existence. I'm just saying, if there's 10 reasons why this team disappoints us in 2025, this would be a big one. And it is the biggest one. And you'll see on Friday's episode, when I go down the list, you'll see the mirror of this, the inverse of this, all the positive reasons, all the reasons why this team will succeed and will make a run in 2025. And they're going to be very similar to what you've already read to an extent. There's some that are definitely like, I feel great about this on this team, or I love this about the 2025 team, or we should really be excited about this position group, or that was an underrated signing. Good job, team. And that'll be on the next episode of Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. Until next time, Uday.
Bengals fans, tired of the same old post-game chatter? Want real insight beyond the scoreboard? Then you need Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry, presented by First Star Logistics. Joe Goodberry isn't just a fan, he's a die-hard Bengals football analyst. Every week, Joe dives deep into the Bengals game film, breaking down the plays that mattered, revealing hidden strategies, and uncovering the true impact of individual performances. Get ready for post-game analysis like you've never heard before, player evaluations that go beyond the stats, and the most in-depth Bengals draft coverage on the internet. Don't just watch the Bengals, understand the Bengals. Subscribe to Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry on the First Star Media Group's YouTube channel. Get smart, get obsessed, get Bengals on the Brain.